Ellen did not kill herself. I mean, I really feel strongly about that. I do not think that Ellen Greenberg, killed herself at all. Looking at that, the diagram of the wounds, knowing that she had bruising all across her body that were at various stages. I'm not saying he was abusive, but it's possible. This is a wild situation. So you'll see my tweet here. Ellen Greenberg did not kill herself. So Ellen Greenberg was a 27-year-old school teacher. She taught in like an inner city school in Philadelphia. Great girl, young, beautiful, fun, driven, all of the things that we say about people who have passed, right? But really, she was like just a genuinely good person. She was engaged. She was very much looking forward to her wedding, came from a good family, all of those things. And on January 26th in 2011, a very strange set of circumstances happened, which is going to be very difficult for me to explain that makes any sense because it doesn't make any sense. But essentially what happened was on January 26th, she woke up, she went to work. It was a school day. She went to work, but there was a snowstorm coming in. So went to work, started snowing really hard. They decided to cancel school early. So she was very excited about that. She left work. She stopped to get gas. I think she made one other stop, maybe at a restaurant or something, and then went home. And she was home. Her fiance was home. They were just hanging out, chilling. He decided that he was going to go down to the gym, which was in their apartment building. They lived on a 6th-floor apartment in a really nice apartment complex. They had a gym in the building. He decided he was going to go down to the gym. He left. He came back less than an hour later. And when he came back, he realized that their door was latched from the inside. So I'm sure like if in a hotel, like the latches that go across, not like the flimsy chain ones that you could probably pretty easily break down. But like the one that slides across, if that makes sense. But it was latched from the inside. So obviously he couldn't get in. And he claims he was very annoyed by this. So he starts texting her, hey, why'd you lock me out? Starts calling her, starts texting her, calling her, trying to get her attention, is getting annoyed. Hey, I'm getting really pissed off. Why aren't you answering the door? All of that stuff. He eventually decides to go down to talk to the security guard. He asks the security guard, hey, can you come upstairs and help me like get into the apartment? I can't, the door's locked from the inside. And the security guard says that he told him no, that's against like their policy, the apartment, whoever owns it, it's against their policy. So fiance goes upstairs by himself, decides he's going to kick the door in. So he says he kicks the door in, and he finds Ellen on the ground in the kitchen, slumped up in a corner kind of cabinets. And she was bleeding, and he calls 911. And I wanted to include the 911 call because it's so ridiculous, but it's also like 5 to 7 minutes long. But the acting is terrible. I highly encourage you to go listen to it. It's really bad. Oh my God, I can't believe it's one of the worst 911 calls I've ever heard. Allegedly, I'm not saying he did it, but I'm just saying it doesn't sound very convincing to me anyway. But he talks to the 911 operator, describes that there's a lot of blood. He says he can't determine where the blood is coming from, whatever. She encourages him to then try CPR. So he claims to be, trying to get her shirt off of her. It's like a zip up hoodie. And then he says, oh, there's a knife in her chest. And there's literally a 5-inch blade knife sticking out of her chest that he's just now noticing, despite the fact that he's been in the room for multiple minutes now, on the phone with 911, trying to determine what happened, what's wrong, where's she bleeding from, there's a lot of blood, what's going on, which you can hear happening over the course of this 911 tape. And so he notices the knife. She tells him, okay, stop. You can't do CPR if there's a knife in her chest, obviously. So help comes, all of that good stuff. Ellen obviously was pronounced dead. The cops pretty much immediately took him at his word, assumed that she had been in the apartment by herself, and that she had killed herself. Well, then the medical examiner does an autopsy, and it turns out that Ellen didn't just stab herself in the heart, which is a weird thing to do, especially for a woman, in terms of ending your own life. But she was stabbed not once, not twice, not 3 times, 20 times. 20 times. And that's a conservative estimate because it appeared that there were some stab wounds that had been on top of each other. So it could have been more than one, but it was difficult to determine because it was like stabbing in the same location. So 10 stab wounds were in her chest and abdomen area, and 10 stab wounds were, as you can see here, literally in the back of her head and neck. And I don't know how you do that to yourself. I don't know why you would do that to yourself. We should also mention that this is a very uncommon way for women to commit suicide. Now, there's been some trending in different directions in the past decade or so, but historically speaking, women choose things like overdose, things that aren't messy or painful or gruesome or any of that stuff. And there, again, as I mentioned, there has been a shift over the course of the past decade where we have started to see more things like hangings and stuff like that involving women. And I'm sorry that this is very morbid, but just to give you like baseline why this is weird. This wouldn't be common for anybody, y'all. Who is going to stab themselves 20 times? 20 times? I mean, I've never been stabbed. I can't imagine it feels good. And I can't imagine 20. And again, back of the head and neck. I don't even know how you reach that way. And I've been following this case since it happened. And I have numerous times like tried to figure out how you would do that. And I have long arms. I'm tall. I'm 5'9". I have long arms. I don't know how you stab yourself in the back of the head. She also had a very large gash on the top of her head and bruising at various stages of healing on mostly her arms, abdomen, legs, things like that. So lots of fishiness and a significant amount of fishiness regarding this case and whether or not that this was a suicide. But they initially just treated it like a suicide straight from jump. The medical examiner does his autopsy. He finds all of these stab wounds and he makes the preliminary determination that this is a homicide. He sticks with that story until he gets a visit from the attorney general and some others. And then he changes his determination from homicide to suicide. He claims it is because they were presented with new evidence that the cops have been doing their investigation, that they found some information regarding Ellen's mental health. And to be fair, and to be very clear, Ellen was struggling. She was dealing with a lot of stuff. She was teaching in an inner city school. It was really difficult. She felt bad that the kids were in the situation that they were in. She felt bad giving them bad grades. She felt like their parents weren't helpful. She was really struggling in trying to figure out if she wanted to stay in that job or if it was too much for her. She was engaged. They were due to be married in just a few months. So she was stressed out from trying to plan the wedding. She had made multiple comments to friends and family members that she was unhappy. She made a comment to her dad at one point that she wanted to quit her job and move home. But it wasn't anything so severe that people around her were concerned about her necessarily. Her parents did encourage her to get professional help, which she did. She was seeing a therapist in the months and days leading up to her death. They prescribed her, I should have wrote it down. They prescribed her 2 medications. I'm not going to say which ones because I don't want to be wrong, but they prescribed her 2 medications to start. Those were not effective for her. She wasn't seeing an impact. So they switched her to 2 different medications. And those seem to be, and anybody who's dealt with mental health stuff, you very often have to kind of bounce around to medications until you find one that works for you. And she got lucky second time. It seemed that it was an effective switch for her. So she was doing much better, at least was managing it better. She was continuing to go to her appointments. She seemed like she was in good spirits. She had just mailed out save the date cards for the wedding. On the day of her death, she went to work, she came home, or she filled up her gas tank. That's forward thinking behavior. Typically people who are intending to commit suicide don't bother with that kind of stuff. She came home, she entered grades into the computer system for her school. She was doing things that implied that she was forward thinking. So why this is also very suspicious, other than obviously 20 stab wounds, the way that the cops handled this whole situation from jump was horrendous. They did not secure the scene for an actual investigation, which, at least in my my knowledge, and I'm not a law enforcement expert in any way. I'm not trying to pretend to be, but I do follow a lot of true crime cases. And from everything I've heard, that any death has to be initially treated, anything like that needs to be treated as suspicious circumstances until otherwise proven. And there was no time. The very next day after Ellen was found dead in their kitchen, the fiance's uncle and cousin were allowed to go into the apartment unattended, unsupervised. They claimed that they were only going to get a suit for the fiance for the funeral. And instead they took her purse, Ellen's purse, her cell phone, and her laptop. Not suspicious at all. And the cops also released the apartment to the fiance and recommended a crime scene cleaning crew. So after there's a crime or a death or whatever that is, messy, there are actual crews that will come in and clean it for you and make sure that everything is sanitary and whatever to the best that they can. Obviously, there may be exceptions, but generally speaking, they're able to clean up a crime scene pretty well. So, but the cops the next day after this, and this is the medical examiner has said that he thought it was a homicide. Crazy business to me. And there's a lot more, a lot of nefarious connections. And I think the grandfather of the fiance was like a high-powered attorney. And there's, some stuff. Now, they also didn't investigate at all the apartment. They didn't really do any testing on the door frame to see if, in fact, the door appeared to be kicked from like the hallway in, as he claimed that it was locked from the inside. They did none of that stuff. There was really no, I don't think that they did any sort of like fingerprint testing on the knife or any of that stuff. Not that I think that would have mattered necessarily because he lived there. Fingerprints might have been on there. I mean, but there was just really there was nothing. There was no investigation whatsoever. And her parents from day one have been fighting like crazy against this stuff. So they recently won a pretty significant victory. So parents of Ellen Greenberg, Philadelphia woman found stabbed to death, want city to re-examine case. Attorneys for Ellen Greenberg's parents say they are fed up and tired of waiting. They're asking the city of Philadelphia to follow the terms of a settlement agreement reached months ago and complete a re-examination of their daughter's death. In February, the city agreed to pay Ellen Greenberg's parents, Sandy and Joshua Greenberg, $650,000 and reopen the controversial investigation into their daughter's January 2011 death. In a case that's continued to receive national attention, officials first ruled Ellen's death a homicide. She had been stabbed upwards of 20 times with a kitchen knife on the front and back of her body. Again, there's the diagram for you. The idea that for this long they've been calling this a suicide is wild. I mean, this is like Hillary Clinton level stuff, right? Then the ruling was later flipped, with officials labeling her death a suicide. That stunned her parents. They've fought since then, challenging the city's designation that her death was a suicide. The Greenbergs' attorneys accused police and the medical examiner's office of an unlawful conspiracy to stop a murder investigation that they say had been grossly mishandled by investigators. Right before the city settled with the Greenbergs, in February, the formal medical examiner who performed Ellen's autopsy made a sworn declaration that, given new information in the case, he believed Ellen's manner of death should be designated as, quote, something other than suicide. Okay. The Greenbergs are asking the city to comply with the settlement agreement within 5 days. Quote, there has been more than enough time for the city to do a re-examination. The city had promised to do so expeditiously, meaning very promptly, said attorney Joe Pedraza, who represents the Greenbergs. Quote, the clients would then get a final determination given all the evidence to date that the only conclusion the medical examiner reached, including Dr. Marlon Osborne, is that Ellen didn't commit suicide. A spokesperson for the city's law department tells CBS News Philadelphia that they will be in contact with the Greenbergs' lawyers and that the review is actively in progress. Quote, the city will fulfill its obligation under the settlement agreement in this case and will respond to plaintiff's motion in due course, is what the settlement said. And so there's still like an ongoing fight. Her parents have been I mean, they have been on, I think, like Dr. Phil and Nancy Grace. And not that I like those people, but they have been pushing this literally since day one. I've been following this case from 2011, and they have been pushing this since day one. They never believed that Ellen had committed suicide. And I understand that, especially as a parent, I don't think any parent wants to think that their child would do that. Um, but I don't think that this is that. I think anybody watching this or anybody that saw that diagram would agree that that is sus. That is wild that that was just labeled as a suicide and written off. 20 stab wounds, 10 of them to the back of the head. That's, I mean, kind of hard to believe. Sorry. And they just really failed on every level to do any legitimate investigation. There was never any, I don't even think they really interrogated the fiance. They did take him into custody, I think, at the time. Obviously, though, that's a pretty standard protocol. A witness to a death or whatever, you're probably going to take them in. But there was really no investigation. There was no attempting to determine how the door was broken into. Did he actually break into the house from the outside? Or was he on the inside and was just trying to make it look like it had been broken into, or whatever? I mean, to me, it's just really difficult for me to believe that a 27-year-old woman who was having some hard times, sure, but was seemingly in a fairly good place, had a good family, all of that stuff. And I realize that people are dealing with stuff that we couldn't possibly know or understand. And I get that. But this is just incredibly suspicious. And now, why this is so interesting is that Governor Josh Shapiro was involved in this. He was involved at the time during the investigation. And now, obviously, he's in a much bigger position of power and authority. And I think he's somebody that I think they've been trying to prime for bigger stages. So that's definitely an interesting aspect of this. But Ellen's family is definitely not backing down on this at all. There's numerous like mini documentaries, oh my God, the podcasts, the true crime community, who, as much as a true crime like kind of junkie I am, is also kind of a vile community on many levels. There's a lot of really terrible people that do it. But you can find some good ones that are really informative if you want to learn more about her case. And I highly recommend going and checking out the 911 call. It's absurd on every level. Just trust me. Go listen to it. It is insane. Terrible acting job. And again, I'm not saying he's guilty. I didn't say that. I'm just saying it's suspicious and it should definitely be looked at. They should definitely reopen the investigation. And it's wild. And there needs to be really an investigation into, I mean, I don't know if it's just because he has well-placed family. It seems wild that they would go invest that much into covering up a crime not significant for just some 20-something-year-old schmuck. That seems like an awful lot of effort to go to, jeopardizing more people to cover up a crime like that. So I'm not really sure what happened. I'm not really sure how it's going to play out. But I'll say it again. Ellen did not kill herself. I mean, I really feel strongly about that. I do not think that Ellen Greenberg killed herself at all. Looking at that, the diagram of the wounds, knowing that she had bruising all across her body that were at various stages. I'm not saying he was abusive, but it's possible. I mean, she was definitely struggling with something. She seemed like she was battling something, and we'll probably never know, but I do really hope that her parents get some kind of answer at some point, or at least get them to reopen it, re-examine the case. That's all they're asking for. Just let them, I think that they're willing to hire people. They've already spent a significant amount of money attempting to get private investigators and all of that stuff on it. So I don't know. We'll see how hopefully there will be some new information later this year. I think that there's been a pretty significant push in recent days. So I'm hoping that, I mean, we're starting to get some information on JonBenet Ramsey even, and Madeleine McCann. So, I mean, we're starting to get some information on JonBenet Ramsey even, and Madeleine McCann. So, I mean, we're starting to get some information on JonBenet Ramsey even, and Madeleine McCann. So, I mean, we're starting to get some information on JonBenet Ramsey even, and Madeleine McCann. So You never know. We may actually get a little something, something.
Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Toronto, Red Bank, New Jersey, Northampton, Massachusetts, Concord, New Hampshire, Oxnard, California, Rutherford, New Jersey, New York, Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.